Hi, everyone. I'm Kyler from the Content Mix, and I'm excited to be here with Euan Brown, Head of Digital and Content at Virgin Red, Virgin's Rewards Club program. As a digital strategy expert with 20 years experience in strategy, content, marketing, innovation, product development, and brand management, Euan has worked for some of the top organizations in the world, including the Walt Disney Company, Coca-Cola, and the BBC. Euan strives to be a marketer who's different from the rest, developing unique content and strategies that have led him to the success he has had throughout his career. And we're excited to have him on today's show to learn more about why it's important to be a marketer who stands out and innovates, rather than simply sticking to the hottest trends, especially in today's fast-paced and ever-changing digital world. So let's dive right into it. I'm going to welcome Euan to the show, and thank you so much, Euan, for joining us today.
Thank you. What an introduction! My goodness, I was kind of jealous of the person you were describing. So,
well, that's you. And I did that based on your portfolio. So,
okay, great. Well, I'll try and live up to the hype.
Yeah. Well, your career speaks for itself. But I always ask people, because I do kind of this nice introduction in the beginning, but I want you to be able to introduce yourself in your own words. So, can you just tell us a bit more about who you are, where you're from, and where you're calling in from today? And
Sure.
what's your connection to content marketing in Europe?
Of course. So, I'm Euan. I have been in the digital. I've been doing digital marketing and content marketing for just over 20 years now. Mm-hmm. I'm based in London, in the UK, and have been working on, as you mentioned, some of the brands that I've worked on. So some are based in the UK, some are global brands, and worked on. So, and I've been very lucky enough to have. Sort of span the whole gamut of digital marketing and really got my hands dirty on product marketing and content marketing and coding and designing and presenting. So I've been able to dabble a little bit in everything. And today I focus more on digital marketing and content marketing.
Okay. So I kind of want to touch upon too, because I was doing the research, as I mentioned in the introduction, and you actually received your degree in psychology. And then you kind of set out into the world of work, and you were a web assistant at the BBC, working as a producer for 10. And then you also worked as a producer for 10 years at organizations like Walt Disney, Freelancer Media UK, and Channel 4. And I was preparing the interview. I was like, this is so cool. Like, what cool companies and, things that we consume all the time. So I'm curious to know, why did you go into this field, and kind of with a psychology background? Was that your intention going into university to go into marketing and stuff like that? But also kind of how have the skills acquired, especially working in production, have the skills have impacted your overall career when you look back today?
Sure. So psychology, I study psychology because I do find people fascinating. So I just find the way that we think, the way that we work, all of that, I just found fascinating. And I took the course at uni. I'd never studied psychology before. I just knew I found it interesting. So I did the course, and I got 3 years of being really interested. And then after that, I kind of knew I didn't want to be a psychologist. I think I wanted to be in TV. So for me, TV was where it was at. And all that people would tell me is it's really hard to break into TV. So I was trying to do that, and I found a temp agency in London that specialized in broadcast companies. And I remember being interviewed, and they said, don't expect to go anywhere like the BBC on your first day. And literally the next day I got a job at the BBC.
Wow.
So through there, I made connections, and I worked at the BBC, starting as a web assistant, as you mentioned, working on the Science and Nature website. And I got to work at the press office, which was fantastic. I worked for CBBC, and one of the channels as well. And in the UK, we have BBC iPlayer, which I was there at the time. They were creating iPlayer, which is, for anyone who doesn't know, it's everyone now has streaming services, but it was one of the first, which was really exciting. And the BBC pioneered that. And the BBC is a great place to get, if you want to start a career in digital, it's a great place to get started. I was always curious about the internet. So I went to uni in the late 90s, where the internet was still really slow. And we were still trying to figure out what it was. And I was just really curious about it. So in my spare time, I'd dabble, I'd make websites for no one in particular, just because. And through that, it meant that when I went to the BBC, I already had some skills. I didn't realize that at the time it was a career move. But it was great. So I was in TV. I was also able to do something I was naturally interested in, and it was still the beginning of digital marketing and content marketing, and we were still trying to figure out what all that was. So as I mentioned, BBC, I just lucked out because the BBC is an organization that really supports people and really develops them. And because it was so early on, we didn't really have content management systems and things like that. So we all had to do a bit of coding, a bit of designing, a bit of copywriting. All of those skills I now know, and they've definitely informed the way I think about how we now produce apps and websites and social today.
Right. And I feel like a lot of people, when I'm listening to that, was like, I feel a lot of people will be like, he was in the right place at the right time because he's like, before the age of the internet and it was getting his foot in the door. But what I kind of interpreted from what you were just talking about was you had an interest, a passion, and you kind of just went for it. And I do think a lot of the guests in the show, that's like one common thread, because I'm doing these interviews every week, and it's just everyone has a passion and just kind of the rest kind of unravels the way it should. And it seems like okay, I did psychology, but it doesn't mean I have to be a psychologist or stuck. I kind of was interested in people. And I think that interest, it must have carried over right into your career now. And
completely. And
marketing, you have to understand people.
Completely. It's everything about marketing is really getting under the skin of why people do what they do, why they think what they think, and, trying to talk to people in the right way and find the right people to talk to. So all of that is psychology. So I do think psychology and marketing has a big crossover.
And I feel like a lot of things, I was just talking to somebody for another episode about travel and how travel impacted their outlook on marketing. So there's so many different factors in life that I don't think are so clear cut. And I do find that in Europe, kind of when you like do a degree, you have to like go and do that as your career. And I think maybe in the UK, the US, we kind of have this more of a mindset of, well, you did that and now you can do it like whatever you want. Like in the US, you could study English literature and become a lawyer. So it's kind of very much, I think that's a new trend that hopefully, I think in continental Europe, we can hope to have, because I think a lot of people are very much like stuck with that idea. And I think it was really cool that you just kind of chased this passion of, I like TV and I like people and internet, and let's see what happens. Now, when I was doing more research at that point in your career, I was like, okay, that's really, really interesting. We could have a whole episode about just his work in digital, like media and the BBC and all this. But then I also found out that you worked at Coca-Cola, which is obviously a huge, name around the world, and also pioneers in marketing. So they're kind of like the top dogs when it comes to that. And in 2011, you started working there, where you produced content, products, and marketing for Europe, including work for the London 2012 Olympics and the Share a Coke campaign. So when I read that, I was like, this could get any more interesting. I'm just fun to like pick every part apart and see like, how was that experience? So I kind of want to know, like, how was it to work for Coca-Cola on an international event that's so significant, like as the Olympic Games, but also just like the Olympic Games in London, in which for the UK was such a big monumentous moment in 2012 to be able to host that. So how was that experience in general?
Well, it was definitely a once in a lifetime opportunity to work for this brilliant brand at exactly the right time. So Coca-Cola sponsored the Olympics for a long time. And and every year, the way they structured their marketing comms is that the host country will typically create much of the content, and then that is rolled out across the world. So we had a huge team based in the UK. They almost took up a whole floor of just people dedicated to London 2012, marketing, comms, creative, all of that. And at the same time, we were launching a loyalty program. So I was part of the coming up with creative ideas. We were also setting up this loyalty program. So there was a product that we were delivering in order to deliver content in a slightly different way. So we were connecting with basically any customer touch point. We tried to find a way to get content on that touch point from one single source. So that was all fascinating. And then, just seeing content that only Coke could do with Coke's resources and their global network was incredible. And then following that and then obviously being in London at the time was also fantastic. So I was very lucky enough to be in the opening ceremony as well. So that whole time, and if you're ever in a host city during the Olympics, it's really a magical time wherever you are. So highly recommend that as an experience once in your life. And then Share a Coke. It is actually in the UK and Europe. We rolled it out at the same time. In Australia, had done it the year before and seen this huge success. And Coke will often look to other markets to see where they've tried new things and will take it forward. So this is not a new concept, but a lot of companies work with the 70-20-10 split, where 70% of marketing or resources will be spent on things that you know are tried and tested. 20% will be expanding on things that you've maybe tried before, and 10% is reserved for trying something new. If it fails, it's not the end of the world. But if it works, that's an opportunity to be the 20% or the 70% the next year. Mm-hmm. So Share a Coke was an example of taking something that had worked really well in Australia, figuring out how it's going to work in Europe and making it even bigger. So there was a digital component. We knew that people like me with the name Euan are probably not going to find their bottle in a store. But what you could do is you could order your bottle online, and you could also send a friend a digital like Coke can with your name on it and things like that. So we were trying to find ways that you could still engage and find your name, even if you couldn't find it in your local supermarket.
And I just remember that, like, I remember being impacted. Well, I'm like you, Kyler was never going to be on a can, but I just do remember like the general, I think I was in Spain at that point, and it was just, I was like studying abroad then, and they had it all out, and everyone was like, I just remember people like, still remember like seeing the cans and like, oh my God, like it's my name on it. So it's really cool that like how a company so big, right? Like Coca-Cola could really like connect with its consumer in a new way. Mm-hmm. And that's like the thing that blows my mind about Coca-Cola is like, it's a brand that's been around for so long, but they're still coming up with ways to make it fresh and innovative. And it's the same product, but it's like, has done really well. So it's really cool that you were able to do that. And I'm very jealous about the Olympics part of it, because it's really cool. And it must have been like a proud moment for you, because you're doing that, working on such a campaign, and it's in a big event that's important to the world, also to your country, to your city. So it is really, really interesting. Now, another part, so like your career kind of took another turn when I was doing research, is that you moved into work as a freelancer, correct? On strategy, content acquisition, and CRM for organizations such as Virgin, HSBC, Lloyd's Banking Group, and United Nations, among others. Now, kind of why did you decide to leave Coca-Cola and transition into life as a freelancer? And so a lot of people, I don't think, would think that's like the logical step. I think in a traditional, I'm not saying that's great that you did that. I love people who like kind of do things and can take risks and stuff like that. But it's like you had this great job at Coca-Cola, which is like this, we were just talking about how important they are in the world. And you left and kind of took this risk, we could say, and transitioned into this new life. So what did you learn from this career shift, and why did you do it?
So the reason why I did it at the time was I think I sort of ticked the Coca-Cola box, and I ticked the objective that I needed to do at Coca-Cola. And my role became a little bit more teaching others how to do content marketing, which is great, but I love creating the digital and content marketing. So I wanted to move into a role where I could consult with others, and I could lead some of those projects. So I worked agency side and I worked client side during that time. So I worked for an agency that specialized in shopper marketing. That was a new thing that I hadn't really got lots of experience on. Coke has an unbelievably amazing shopper marketing strategy for FMCG. It's probably world leading. They've got it. I could talk to you for an hour on that. But so coming from that background, it was interesting then going into more of an FMCG and seeing how other brands did it, like Procter & Gamble and Reckitt Benckiser and AB InBev and all of those. I work client side for and with agencies for a lot of the financial institutions. So I work with Lloyd's Banking Group and HSBC on different projects. So Lloyd's Banking Group was all around content strategy and rolling out a consistent content approach across the whole of Lloyd's Banking Group. So for those who don't know, it's one, if not the biggest banking group in the UK. I think half of all of Britons are a customer of Lloyd's Banking Group in one way or another. So they have all this data, and because they all operate these different brands in a different way, they wanted to find what is consistent. How can you? So I created a content playbook where literally from start to finish, even if you don't know what content marketing is, you will understand why you do it, what you're going to get out of it, how you create great ideas, how do you optimize it, and then finally, how do you share everything that you've done with the rest of the team? Because I don't know about you, but I've certainly worked for a lot of companies that don't like revealing when things haven't worked quite so well. And I believe that that's a stigma that we need to try and get out of a little bit. I think we need to embrace trying new things, not at a big scale. I think we need to try new things at a small scale, and then embracing them when they fail, because that's something we've learned from. So we still got a long way to go.
We do.
But slowly, I think the more that we can get this kind of test and learn mentality and just trying new things and trying to do things in a better way, I think ultimately your marketing will work better. So I think I got off the topic a bit, but I did that for Lloyds Banking Group, HSBC. I worked on a project to, again, it was a consistifying, I don't know if that's a word, job to take all of the different brand guidelines that they had for HSBC around the world and try and bring them all into one, and then create their own version of a sort of design language that is consistent. So that was something that I did the content for, and I sort of brought all of those together. Mm-hmm. And where else did I work? I'm sure I worked for others. And I did, and I worked a tiny little bit on Google and a few other brands as well. So yes, it was a great time where I got to try. It was actually the first time I'd worked agency side before, so that was also another reason to just see how the other side worked, because I'd only been client side up until then.
That's awesome. Now, I have some questions that came from all of that. First of all, or comments I just want to make. That whole idea about like taking risks and making mistakes is so essential to content marketing, and I just like want to reiterate that for anyone listening, because I feel like that's the hardest thing. I mean, in my experience working with clients that maybe don't fully understand how it works. And a lot of it is trial and error, and a lot of it is time and patience. I think that's something that you brought up, and like having the playbook, and also just being able to be like, this didn't work, and being transparent about that. I think that's something that we're getting better as, even though it's like a global society, in the sense of like, it's okay to not be perfect. And it's okay to be like, you could be like the best person in your industry and still make a mistake. And it's normal because we're human. So I think that was, just wanted to like highlight that from the, from that. But also I did want to ask too, like, so you took this, you made this change and you made it, I'm going to be a freelancer and get this consultant work and work with different agencies, with different big like companies, et cetera. How did you have a network to like already like have these connections to reach out to people, or like, how did you get your name out there? Cause I feel like a lot of people will want to listen and be like, okay, well, I'm working at a really job that I feel like all my boxes are checked, like how you felt at Coca-Cola, and I want to do something different and take that risk. How do I get started?
Do you know what? There's no secret. I do have, as time goes on, my connections get better and better. So, but anyone can put a note out on LinkedIn or to your people that you work with saying like, hey, if you hear of anything, this is the kind of thing I'm looking for. And I would talk to recruitment agencies, but the right ones who I'd worked with for a long time, and just made sure they knew exactly what I was looking for and they kept me in mind. And then I, obviously, like everyone else, I applied for jobs and opportunities when I see them coming. So yeah, no secrets there really, just what everyone else does, I'm afraid. Yeah, so reach out to your network, get a good recruiter, and apply. And then when you apply, just try and go the extra mile, because if you're ever the other side of the table recruiting, you spot those people so clearly. If people look like they really, really want the role, I can't speak for everyone, but for me, certainly, I'm really interested in seeing people who that passion comes across. So if you go the extra mile, it is noted.
It makes sense. And I feel like passion's what gets you out of bed every morning to do it. So if you don't have a passion for the job you're doing, then you shouldn't be doing it. But it does seem like it's good to like have people see that, because then it shows that you're committed without even starting the project that you're working on. So I think that's really important. I think a lot of people too get, they're comfortable in their jobs, and that whole idea of taking a risk and reaching out to my network can be scary. But I do think nowadays, especially like with LinkedIn and all these things, we can easily do that. And we have greater access to more opportunities because of the internet and how everything's online. Now, during that time when you were doing that work as a freelancer, you also worked for Virgin, and now you're working at Virgin Red as the head of content and digital. So for the listeners who maybe don't know, and honestly, I didn't know because I'm not in the UK, nor am I British. So maybe I just don't have any, I feel like Virgin, I know what it is, but and it's such a big corporation. I didn't know every like little subsidiary of it is, but Virgin Red is a part of Virgin, and it's one of the most important, which is obviously one of the most important companies in the UK. And it launched in 2020, so Virgin Red's quite new. It's a rewards club, essentially. And quote, it's the red thread which connects the Virgin family and where members can earn on everyday items to save for the extraordinary, end quote. So at the company, you lead teams to commission and publish editorial, product, campaign, and commercial content to acquire, engage, and convert audiences. So definitely content is the name of the game for you. So can you tell us a bit more about the work that you're doing at Virgin Red, and kind of how is it the red thread that connects everything within the Virgin world? And also, what's a typical work day for you? Like, are you like remote? Are you trying to manage teams all online? Kind of just a bit more about what you do every day.
Sure. So Virgin Red is it's a relatively new rewards club for the Virgin Group. So as you mentioned, the Virgin Group is very broad, and there's lots of different companies within it. And the Virgin Red is all about trying to bring those even closer together, and giving it's a reward scheme. So if you hopefully are a customer of certain Virgin companies, you will earn Virgin points, so you can then spend those Virgin points on great rewards. So that's what we do. So as you said, we launched an MVP the tail end of last year. And we went big this year with the launch. We've got plans to scale up. So that's what's keeping me busy right now. In terms of my team, we lead on digital marketing and content marketing. So on the digital marketing side, it's all around making sure that we get our comms and our content in the right places to the right audiences. So looking at media plans, looking at how we test and learn to optimize, looking at things like SEO, and trying to optimize our content creation as well. So looking to see if there are tools that we can use to make us work better. And for example, automation is something that we're looking at now. There's lots of content that we create, and some of it is quite manual. So the more that we can automate that, the more we can focus on creating really brilliant work. So that's the digital side of things. And then on the content side of things, we create content for our social channels for Virgin Red, and we create content for Virgin Red on the app and the website. And then we also create content for Virgin Master Brand. So when we talk about Virgin Master Brand, we've got the overarching Virgin Master Brand, and then below that you have all of the great Virgin companies across the world. So we create content for Virgin Master Brand, which talks about all of those different companies and some of the initiatives that all of those companies share. So it might be, trying to find more environmentally friendly ways to do things, or it might be how Virgin innovates. So telling those stories as well and meeting the people. And then the last one is entrepreneurship. So Richard Branson is probably known as the ultimate entrepreneur. So entrepreneurship is something that is that's another red thread that flows through the Virgin company. So how do we do things differently, and how do we highlight all the great work we're doing around entrepreneurship?
And I feel like for Virgin, like storytelling is a very big part of the brand's identity. I mean, for example, and I don't want to sound stupid doing this, but I don't really know much about Virgin because for me, it's like Virgin Records was like the big thing when I was growing up in the US. But I know what it is. I know Richard Branson, his story. I know the impact it's had, but I don't know specifically. So it seems like they do a good job in terms of storytelling, which is great. And I just wanted to know, in terms of you said you're scaling up right now, so probably haven't had time to really do a lot of big campaigns or a piece of content, but what has been a piece of content that really worked well for you at Virgin Red, or maybe one that hasn't worked well?
So there was a campaign when we launched in June. So we did a big TVC. We did led by another team, not me, but we did a big TVC and a big acquisition campaign to try and let people know who Virgin Red is and start getting the word out there about what's in it for customers. And as part of that, there was an experiential activation where it was very cool. We had an ice cream van floating in free air, and if people came by, you could get a free ice cream, but you could also enter a competition to win points, and somebody won 1 million points. So from a digital side, we're still very young, so we started to do competitions on social. So the first one we did, we thought, well, not everyone can get to London. So anyone else in the UK can take part in a social competition and also win 1 million points, which by far and away was the most engaging thing we'd done up until then. So that worked incredibly well. And we were able to create content from the event itself and, of the winners winning at the event, and then also celebrating the winners online. So it's very simple, but it was something that we knew our audience really liked competitions because historically, this is actually the second version of Virgin Red. And the first version was all around competitions. So some of those members are still very into competitions and they like that. So we know that was going to engage them. What we now need to focus on is how do we bring all of those competition loving fans into the new program, which is all about being a Virgin customer and being rewarded by using Virgin Red to earn points.
And how do you, I'm curious now, because you're talking about your target audience and that they're competitive and they have this nature, how do you guys do your research on your target audience to connect better with them?
So we do social listening. So we do some social listening just to understand a little bit about the market. We do brand tracking exercises. We have customer panels. We do qualitative and quantitative research. These are different teams that will lead on the insights, and then they gather them all, and we take those key insights, and that informs our content strategy. And then obviously we look at our data. So we'll have a look to see what posts are performing well and why. And we'll also experiment with different ad targeting. So we'll look at lookalike audiences, or we'll target certain interest groups. Something that's very interesting about Virgin Red is that actually a lot of the time we're not just targeting fans of loyalty companies, because we have so many different partners that we work with, all from Virgin Atlantic to Virgin Wines and everything in between. So those people who are interested there are going to be lots of different groups who are interested in different rewards. And so that the way that we communicate, the way that we target has to be very different. It's very different to a brand like say a bank, where actually those audiences are going to be quite similar, although you might try different approaches. This is almost a catalogue of different audiences that we need to try and get under the skin. So some of them will be Virgin Red fans, or we will want them to be Virgin Red fans, and some of them will be more tactical, where we'll talk to people who we think will be interested in those specific rewards.
Mm-hmm. Now, just going to say, before you talked about the different Virgin Wines and how you have to kind of reach out to those different audiences, I was going to say you already have a lot of work on your plate with the fact that you're kind of revitalizing Virgin Red. It was something that had existed before. So you're trying to convince these old customers to come back while also attracting to new people. But then you have all these different audiences now. So it must feel, I understand why you're very busy at the moment, because of the scaling up and also trying to get everything out and to connect and build the name. It must be a lot of work and a lot of pressure. Mm-hmm. But now I kind of wanted to take that and kind of look more about a philosophical idea that you have. And when my preparation, I found this, but you think it's really important for marketers to not follow the latest trends when it comes to innovating, which I guess seems odd, not obvious. I'm not trying to bring that down at all, but it's kind of okay, yeah, you have to be innovative. But I do feel like, from what I can see, a lot of marketers are just following the latest trends, and they're just trying to go for a quick answer, something that's, flashy and bright. And it's something I think that, since you made it such you emphasize that so much, I want to know why. Why do you think that's so important, and what do you think marketers get wrong when it comes to content marketing?
So I'd say the caveat to that is it's totally fine to try new things. I think it's a great idea for people to try new things, but get your basics right first. I think that's what it really is. So there's so many different parts of content marketing that you're going to probably see more of an impact on if you get those basics right. And then if you've got time later on, then you start trying the new things and new tactics. So I would say, if you're starting out, if let's say you're a brand new company and you haven't done anything, don't go straight on TikTok. I mean, maybe it's the right thing for your brand, but TikTok is it's a really great and interesting proposition. It's going to be right for certain customers. It's not going to be right for everyone. I would start with things like email, which is relatively inexpensive but very effective. I'd start with having a look at social platforms that are well established, like Facebook and Instagram, where those ads tend to have a bit more of an impact. I would start looking at SEO. So SEO is a really great way to try and drive lots of traffic through. So if you've got a blog, so those are sort of your basics of content marketing to get right. And then once you've done that, then you can start testing and learning and maybe trying the new things. But I'd say there's always going to be something new that might distract you. So again, just focus on getting those things right, making those sing. And then once you're doing that, then go crazy, do the other stuff. But the other thing to say is, if you are going to launch a new channel, definitely try try a new thing. Definitely have a plan for supporting it over time. So I can't remember the stat. It's crazy, but it's something like only 20% of business blogs have more than 3 posts. It's crazy. So it just doesn't look good. If you can keep that up to date, Google will love you. So Google is always all about new content, really relevant content, and you'll just get more people coming to your site. So if you are going to try these new things, have a plan and stick to the plan if you can. And if you don't think you're going to be able to commit to it, sometimes it's better just not to do it until you're ready. Yeah.
These things take time. I think that's something I mentioned before, is just patience. I think a lot of times now, in the world that we live in, everything's instant. You can get anything you want in a second, or online, or instant gratification. And I think with content marketing, I always have to explain this to people. It's it takes time, and you have to be consistent. It might be annoying that you have to post a blog post every week, but that's how you're going to build your name, how you're going to get more credibility on Google, for example.
And there are some things in content marketing which are fairly instant, but there are some things that, as you say, are going to take time. So it takes time to build a newsletter database. It takes time for your SEO to kick in. But if you're after something that's a bit quicker, advertising. So you can use social advertising to really quickly reach an audience. So while you're building that and getting the groundwork done, and once you've done that, that's a relatively inexpensive way to drive people to your site, and not only people but the right people, because you've got content they're coming for, and hopefully they're subscribing to your newsletter because they're finding it interesting. So yeah. So it's just kind of getting the basics right, I think, is before you do the new thing.
Sticking to the basics, which nowadays it's hard to forget, like to remember that. It's easy to forget it. We always want to like rush the newest thing and kind of just see what happens and get a quick result. So it's cool that you said like, yeah, you can do that, but at the same time, you have to make sure you have your bases covered and that you're kind of doing the hard work on the side as well. Now, so you're giving us some advice. So now I'm going to kind of switch to the recommendations part of our interview, which I always love. This is my favorite part. And I think any listeners are probably going to be sick of me saying that all the time, but I just love it because I get to have all these really cool people on the show who then share with me different, habits they have or different tools they use. And I'm always like writing everything down for myself, it's great. I get a free insight all the time, which is, one of my favorite parts of the show. Now, I have to ask, like, daily habits. I feel like that's like a big topic of conversation now. It's just like everyone has these habits, how to the habits of a CEO and all these stuff. But I do think they're important, and things that I have a routine and I like to stick to my routine. And I think it gives me success in my career. So I'm just wondering, do you have any daily habits that you would attribute to your success?
So I try. So I'm not always going to say I stick to them, but I'd say, oh man, there's nothing I'm going to say that is revolutionary. So it's just trying to go to bed at a decent time, trying to wake up a bit early and get ahead. Like if you can exercise before you go to work, you just feel so smug. It's a really great way to set the day. And it's, and then actually I've read a great book. I'm going to get it wrong, but it's about habits. I'll remember the name of it soon. But essentially take any good habits you want, try and make them as easy as possible. Any bad habits, try and make them as hard as possible. So for example, I'll put my gym kit out the night before, because then it means if it's cold outside and I'm cozy in bed, I look at it and go, well, it's not that much work to put my gym kit on. It's actually right there. So all of that. So try and do that.
And Atomic Habits, James Clear.
That's it.
I love that
great book. So love that. So if you're somebody who struggles if you think you're not the kind of person who can get it done, this book basically tells you you're not alone and there are ways to make it even easier. And I think in that book as well, they had something that was very inspiring, which said, even if you're 1% better every day, and 1% better is not very hard, then over time it's exponential, right? So you do really well. And actually, it's true. You have to have faith in the process. Make little changes every day, and you will see the results. So I think it's a great book. I'd say the night before, I also have a look at my calendar and I have a look at to-do list, and I get that in priority order. I will say that to-do list will change during the day, and I don't always get through it all. In fact, I can't remember the last time I got through it all, but that's okay as long as you're prioritizing the right stuff. And then when I get especially busy, I just try and make it a point to check that list every few hours just to make sure I'm on track and things like being left off. And then everything else is just trying to be ahead of it. So looking at your calendar, looking at your to-do list and communicating. So if you're not going to get to something, let people know ASAP. Nothing revolutionary.
But the last thing you said is important too, like knowing how to communicate when you can't get something done, or you may need, like knowing when to ask for help when you need it. I think a lot of times we put so much pressure on ourselves to get through the to-do list and make sure we get it done. But there could be someone else that maybe has some free time that could help you, and you get it done together. It's kind of just like letting your guard down and be like, okay, I can ask for help. It's not a big deal. I am 100% not good at that. So I will sometimes do it, but sometimes I'll be like, do you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to get it done. And it's something I definitely need to improve on. Yeah. Now, this question, I feel like people could interpret it like in a cheesy way, but I think it's important. Like, do you have a professional role model or a source of inspiration?
I was thinking about this. Honest truth is there isn't like a one person who I look up to. I do, even though he was quite a controversial figure, I did sort of admire Steve Jobs for having such a clear vision. And he was such an incredible marketer. He was a bit of a geek as well, which is great. And he obviously understood the technology, but actually much more was the vision. And, you can see that when he came back to Apple had been floundering, and it's only gone from strength to strength. So him being so focused, and yes, I'm sure he was very difficult to work with, but him being so focused and having that clearer vision was actually incredibly helpful for that company. So, and it's so good that company is now worth, it's something crazy like $2 trillion.
Yeah.
So, his legacy has really led to that. Now, I don't think I'd ever probably want to work quite the same way that Steve Jobs did, but I try and take away having that clear vision and trying to be like, no, this is the right thing to do. Let's find a way to do the right thing, at least be on that path. Although I know sometimes I also need to let, 80% good is good enough. I think Steve Jobs was like 100% good has to be good enough. But, they make really good products. So
they do.
Maybe 100%
something worked, right?
Yeah.
Now, you also mentioned, we talked about some books before, but I also wanted to ask, like, if you have any like apps or tools or platforms or other books that you would recommend for our readers, especially those like in marketing.
So anyone in marketing, especially content marketing, where you have, especially if you're working multi-markets, multi-channel, it's very difficult to keep on top of your content plans and keep them all connected. So I use a database tool called Airtable, which I love. Airtable.com. It is a simple to use database, which looks an awful lot like a spreadsheet at first glance, but it will also package the information up in a calendar or something like that. So when you're planning a content calendar, rather than looking at the numbers, which for me, sometimes my eyes will glaze over, you get to see all the content visually and you can move it around and you can add images. And so it has the spreadsheet functionality, but it's much, much broader. It helps keep everything a bit more consistent and it helps keep everything linked together. And if you set it up right, you can also do automation. So if you, let's say in Airtable, you mark something as approved, that can then send an email to someone to say it's ready for approval. You might then respond and add feedback in the tool. So it's
really cool.
It's really cool. Yeah. So we're just, and they keep adding new functionality all the time. I kind of love it. People give me, people rib me about how much I go on about it.
Hey, but it's good. And they're not paying you to say this that I know of.
No, they're not. But I'll the check's in the post, I hope.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we've come to the end of the interview, which was, we could have talked for a long time and I could have taken apart every, aspect of your career and kind of picked it apart even more. But unfortunately we have a time limit, so it can't go too long. But I did want to ask, like, as we wrap everything up, if you have any like final takeaways or a piece of parting advice for our audience.
Oh my goodness, parting advice. So it depends who's listening to this podcast. So, I've already kind of covered it. If you're new to content marketing or digital marketing and you just want to get started, the way I got in was to go to recruitment agencies and find one that specializes in your thing. Again, if you want to get started, I'd recommend just looking at content that you enjoy and trying to figure out why. And then, maybe create your own blog. It's not a bad idea there's so many free sites out there, or even if you're on Squarespace, it's like £10, $10 a month, something like that. So just get started. And honestly, if you are looking for a job, just showing that you've got the passion, you're willing to learn is already, you're going to put yourself light years ahead of anyone else. And then if you're established in the industry, just keep learning and keep trying new things. I know I said don't chase things just for the sake of it, but definitely keep on top of it. There's so many blogs and websites out there. Give it a go. Just trying to figure out why it's working or why it's not, and use that to inform it. So test and learn. I'd say test and learn, and try and be as scientific as you can.
Yeah.
So you know exactly. So you know exactly why it's working. Not just you've got two things and one worked better. You need to know why.
Why? The reason behind it.
Exactly.
Sure. Yeah. Now, I'm sure a lot of people listening are going to be like, how do I want to follow him, or I want to like ask him a question or get in touch. Like, what's the best way to reach out to you or to follow you to see what you're doing?
Probably on LinkedIn. So my name is Euan Brown. So it's EUAN Brown. There's only a few of us, so it should be fairly easy to find. I'm the one that works for Virgin Red.
Well, Euan, I want to thank you again so much for your time and for sharing so much from your experience with us today. And yeah, it was a great episode. And I also just want to thank everyone for listening, as always. And as always, I'm going to give the plug, but for more perspectives on the content marketing industry in Europe, check out VeraContent.com/mix, where you can see all the past episodes that we've had. And keep tuning in to the podcast for more interviews with great content experts like Euan. So we'll see you all next time. And Euan, thank you again for your time today.
Thank you very much.